Hey, welcome. It's our next video in the product backlog management series. I'm Ryan, that's Todd. Be sure to check out the description, like and subscribe. We're celebrating the release of the new Professional Scrum Product Backlog Management Skills course. Plenty of information about that in the description as well. Todd, what do you got for us today?
Something that we see so many times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, bloated. Can I say that? Bloated product backlogs?
Bloated is a good word.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Maybe, can I ask you to tell a story?
Yeah.
About that conference talk that you did, asking people about how many product backlog items they have?
Back in the long time ago, before COVID and all of those other things, there used to be these things called conferences, and we'd get together in large groups and talk about stuff in person, not on Zoom. And I used to do a keynote about product backlog management. And one of the opening questions would be, how many of you have a product backlog? And all the hands go up. And I'd say, cool, keep your hands up. How many of you have a product backlog item that's older than 1 month? And everyone kind of laughs. And of course we do. And the hands stay up. It's like, all right, how many of you have one that's 2 months, 3 months, 6 months? And the laughing stopped and the dread set in because still most of the hands were up. Turns out a lot of people are using product backlogs for inventory. The record was like 9 years.
Wow.
Right. And of course it's finance. And of course it's like a mainframe change. And it was crazy. This guy was adamant that I've got to make this change. And finally I just said, sir, it's been 9 years. You work for one of the most successful and wealthiest companies on the planet. I think you're going to be okay. And about 1,000 people erupted in laughter. And he, still looked a little uncomfortable, but kind of smiled. And it was really just one of those weird, like, aha moments that you have, and I'm sure, Todd, you've had plenty of these working with people as well, where you're just sitting there going, holy cow, they are afraid to hit delete on a product backlog. Like this guy, I mean, and he's doing great work. Like this is a really smart product owner. It's someone that I've talked to since, and it was just, there's this hesitation or this terror of losing a good idea or losing something that you might need years down the road. And so it just turns into like the Indiana Jones warehouse where they just bury all the relics and artifacts forever. And it never gets cleaned out. Right.
Yeah. It's okay to delete. Right.
Oh, yeah.
and it's interesting because I think the biggest product backlog I've ever seen was over 10,000 items on it. Right.
So how transparent is that, Todd?
Yes, you just can't find anything, right? And as a product owner, one thing that I've really prided myself on was that I could speak to the product backlog very intimately because I knew what it was on it. And it had to be less than 100 items, right? For me to be able to speak, even 100 items is really hard to keep track of. But over 10,000, how do you even know? How do you make that transparent? How do you make that understood? Where do you even have a report, or what do you do with that? Right. It's just too many.
Yeah. This idea of the product backlog being well understood just becomes ridiculous at 10,000.
Yeah.
Right. If you're on a Scrum team and you've got a product backlog of 10,000 items, you're doomed.
Yeah.
Right. That's dread.
And there's a psychological element to that too, right? Being a developer on the team and there's 10,000 items, there's a psychological element that you're never going to finish anything, right? You're on item 9,999 with 9,998 coming up next. So there's that. But universally, the lack of transparency when you have so many product backlog items, delete them. Those ideas will come back if they are important or if they're valuable.
Well, and people might wonder, well, why do we have to hit delete? Well, look, you've decided to use Scrum as a competitive advantage to deliver ideas and services and products into the marketplace. We're trying to do that in the most minimal but sufficient way, right? So we're ruthless about what's valuable and what's not. And there's no way all 10,000 items on that product backlog, Todd, were valuable. Is that fair?
Yeah, there's no way. Yeah.
And so people might be wondering, all right, I've got one of those huge backlogs. I'm guilty of that. By the way, I've made that mistake. Have you?
Yes.
So we've both been there. We both failed to hit the delete key. So we're not We're not judging you. We're with you. But let's look at how to fix this. So there's been a few guidelines we've shared over the years. If you have a product backlog item that's older than 6 months on your product backlog, delete it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're conducting proper sprint reviews, if you're engaging with stakeholders, if you're delivering frequently and getting good feedback, you're never going to get to those things older than 6 months. You might not even get to those things older than 3 months because new ideas are continually coming in. You're inspecting and adapting. The market is shifting. Those older things you can cut, but 6 months is a good line to start with. If you have continual feedback from stakeholders that look, those things towards the end are never going to happen, cut them. Right?
Yeah.
You're looking for heuristics that can help. I think the 3 to 6 month cut line is good. I think things with 0 value or unidentifiable value, gone. You need to find excuses to keep things. And if you find a good excuse, cut it. Because as Todd said, good ideas will boomerang back. You'll get feedback and it'll come back.
Yeah, and another idea too is create a cap. I worked in a scale environment one time, and I had a cap that said there was only 100 items allowed on the product backlog at one time, and that was with 80 people in a program, and we survived, and we built really good stuff, right? So maybe create a cap if you're a smaller team, 50, right? And people, I can almost sense the anxiety by us having this conversation in some people. But what if we lose this? It will come back. So if it's a good idea, if it's important, if it's valuable, it will come back, right? Now for compliancy, if you have those things on there and you have to get it done, leave them on there, obviously. But we're just trying to get you to trim it so you can make it well understood.
Well, and imagine the behaviors that would have to change if you put a cap. If you said, look, you can have 50 items on the product backlog, no more, no less, won't those things suddenly, aren't you encouraging teams to put small things that can be finished quickly on the product backlog so that new ideas can find their way in?
Yeah. Yep.
What a great shift in behavior that would have to occur in order to keep the flow of work high and where it needs to be. So I think there's a lot of good things there.
Yeah. And I guess one last thing, and this is a story of something that I encouraged, that project I was talking about with over 10,000, they had a lot of anxiety about trimming down and paring down their product backlog. So what we inevitably ended up doing is creating a new product backlog, leaving that one there, not deleting it, but moving over the things that we were going to be working on soon or the big ideas into that product backlog and trying to limit that one to 100. It was very hard in this program to do that. While that other one sat there. Guess how many times after a few weeks people looked at that other one with 100 or tens of thousands, right?
Probably never.
Never. Those ideas were not forgotten ideas. Those ideas just didn't warrant the attention of the Scrum team.
Yeah. So product owners, anyone doing refinement, the delete key is a really good friend.
It is.
All right. I think that's another good one. Let's go ahead and get to the end screen. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos about the product backlog. Be sure to check out the Professional Scrum Product Backlog Management Skills course. It's brand new. Todd and I think you'll love it. And all that information is into the description. Check out our socials. Lots of good stuff out there as well. Some videos are going to pop up. We think you'll like those too. For Todd, I'm Ryan. Go forward, hit that delete key, get your product backlogs down to 50 or less. Your teams will thank you. Your stakeholders will love you. And Todd and I will give you a huge thumbs up. Until then, see you next time.